Hey everybody, welcome back to my front porch, and thanks for tuning into this lecture. It is Monday, April 6th, and please remember to post in the comments below the video that you watched the video. Let me know that you saw it, and post any questions you have about today's content or anything else related to American government and politics. This is going to be a pretty short one because I'm going to very quickly touch on the 8th Amendment to the Constitution, and then I'm going to tell you how the rest of the semester is going to go, exactly what we're going to cover on what days, and I'll tell you a little bit about the final. Not everything about it, a little bit about the final. So, first of all, the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The actual text of the amendment are: excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Now that's, again, applies to the government, and the government doing those things, or the government not being allowed to do those things to its people. This is another one of those amendments that it sounds good in writing, and if it were strictly enforced throughout the history of this country, it would be a good thing, because you don't want the government to be overbearing and impose cruel and unusual punishments for people that don't fit the crimes they've committed. You don't want the government punishing people who have not committed any crimes. So this goes hand in hand with something we touched on last week, and that's due process. A due process under the law, meaning there must be some system, some mechanisms in place to make sure that the government can't just accuse you of a crime and then send you right to prison or execute you right away without there being some process to determine guilt or innocence, to determine the likelihood beyond any reasonable doubt that a person has committed a crime before they are punished by the government. Now, I cannot say this too often, and I can't say it loudly or clearly enough. This has absolutely not been enforced uniformly throughout the history of the United States. It is not. In many ways, the reality of this amendment, the 8th Amendment, is better today than it has been in our past. Certainly different types of people, be they ethnic minorities or women or people from foreign countries or people of minority religious groups, have felt the brunt of this amendment not being enforced by the federal government in years past. Again, it's better today than it has been in most of the history of this country. It meaning enforcement of this amendment and the guaranteeing to Americans of this right, particularly the right that there will be no cruel and unusual punishment inflicted by the government on its people. It's better today than it has been in the past. We still have a long way to go. And if someone is accused of a crime today, they absolutely have this right. Their attorney has the ability to invoke the 8th Amendment if they believe that a court has sentenced someone to a cruel and unusual punishment, or if the court is excessively fining a person a dollar amount. And either of those things, if they do not fit the crime the person's been convicted of. That's important. It's about whether or not a punishment fits the crime. Over the years, the judicial system, particularly the U.S. Supreme Court, has interpreted this to mean different things. Mainly that the sentence for a crime must be proportionate to the crime. In other words, for most of this country's history, it's been the case that if you murder someone, if you intentionally end the life of another person, that you may be eligible for the death penalty. That's the government executing one of its own people for a crime committed against the person. There are people, and I am one of these people, there are a growing number of people in this country, again, of which I am one, who strongly believes that any death sentence is a cruel and unusual punishment, and that it, on its face, de facto, violates the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. Why? Because, first of all, there really is no proportionate response to ending the life, to unjustifiably ending the life of another person. So, many studies have shown that the family members, the survivors of people who are murder victims, generally don't feel any better after the perpetrator has been put to death by the government. Sometimes they do, but generally, I mean, it doesn't fix anything. You don't get the person back. And this is just, and it's not just my opinion, but I'm expounding upon my position on this, so you don't have to agree. In fact, I hope you don't all agree. I hope we have some disagreement and some discussion in the comment section below. But there is a case to be made that death penalty is always cruel and unusual punishment. However, the federal government does not feel that way. There are many states that still impose the death penalty. Kentucky is one of them. We don't do it very often, but it's still on the books in Kentucky, and there are still people sitting on death row in Eddyville, Kentucky, in the state penitentiary awaiting execution. The federal government also can still use the death penalty. They can. The Supreme Court does not agree with me when I say that it's cruel and unusual. However, that's for murder. That's for someone who has been convicted of a murder. Would it be cruel and unusual and in violation of the 8th Amendment to sentence someone to death for stealing $5? Yes. Just about any court in the United States, and certainly the U.S. Supreme Court, would say yes. That is not a proportionate punishment to the crime. Now, here's the question. Let's say that you stole $5,000 or $50,000 in jewelry or a $50,000 vehicle. You stole it from someone. And what should your sentence be? There are federal sentencing guidelines. There are state guidelines on that. But it's a debatable topic as to just how much prison should someone get. Is prison even the proportionate way to punish for that? That's what the 8th Amendment is about. Is about making sure that the punishment for a crime fits the crime itself. There's also been some federal cases over the years about the age of the defendant, the age of someone who's committed a crime. Is it fair to no matter what the crime is, to impose a life sentence on an 18-year-old versus a 48-year-old? Because the 18-year-old should, in theory, have much longer to live, and so that's a very different sentence. See what I'm saying? It sounds like, oh, it's life without parole. It's actually a different sentence for an 18-year-old as a 48-year-old. So there are cases about that as well. And every part of this is debatable and controversial. And you can start an argument amongst lawyers if you bring this topic up, because everybody has their own opinions. The 8th Amendment also should protect prison inmates against excessive violence inside a prison. And several other things as well, but the main thing to remember about the 8th Amendment is that it, in theory, stops the government from imposing penalties that are more severe than the act that brought on the penalty, whether that's a fine, whether they fine you for a crime or something you've done, or it's a prison sentence or a death sentence. The important thing is that those things be proportionate, and the courts have different opinions over time as to what proportionate means. Same thing with bail. The 8th Amendment mentions excessive bail shall not be required. That means the government can't. I mean, if someone, again, you stole $5 and they have a hearing, they say, oh, you can go out, you can be released on bail if you pay $50,000. Well, that doesn't sound very proportionate. And that's the kind of thing this amendment is also designed to prevent. Does it always prevent it? No, but that's what it's designed to do. So that's the 8th Amendment. I've, as always, done an overview that borders on oversimplification. So if you have any questions about the 8th Amendment, post them in the comments below right after you post that you that you watched the video, and so I know you participated in class today. Now, let's talk about the rest of the semester. So we have, counting today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 class periods left. Let's start with the end, April 27th, Monday the 27th, the last day of classes. I'm going to assign the final exam on that day. I'm going to assign it on that day, Monday, April 27th, and you must have it emailed to me no later than May 4th. Why May 4th? Because I have to have them turned in a couple days after that. If I don't get them turned in that week of May 4th, then you run the risk of getting incomplete in the class, and I'd hate to see anyone go through that, because you've all worked so hard to be caught up this far, and you've made pretty good grades so far, and I don't want to see anybody fall short just because of that due date. So I'm going to assign the final exam on April 27th, and it needs to be turned in to me by May 4th. Now, how about the other classes in between now and then? Today is April 6th. Today we covered the 8th Amendment. This Wednesday, April 8th, we're going to do the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. 13, 14, and 15. There's a lot in those. Those are amendments that were passed following the Civil War, following the abolition of slavery, and they have to do with civil rights. Very important stuff. So that's April 8th, the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments. With the week of the 13th, on Monday, April 13th, we're going to talk about the Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott was a slave who sued for his freedom. And we're going to talk about that on the 13th. On the 15th, we're going to talk about Plessy versus Ferguson. Plessy versus Ferguson. That is also a case relating to civil rights. It is a case from the Jim Crow era, the Jim Crow South, that has massive repercussions throughout the civil rights movement and on up through today. Got an airplane going over here. Okay, the week of the 20th, Monday the 20th and Wednesday the 22nd. I'm reserving that time to ideally talk about just very much just a two lecture overview of the civil rights movement and how it impacts American government up to this day. So that's what I'd like to talk about on the 20th and 22nd is the U.S. civil rights movement. However, if there's anything we haven't gotten to you want to hear me talk about, or you want to pose questions, and I can do it back and forth with y'all over email or something until I figure out how to, what we need to address on the videos here, let me know, and we'll do it the week of the 20th. Because I can work just about anything into the civil rights movement, so I can probably take whatever topic we haven't gotten to and work it into what I was going to talk about that week anyway. But one way or another, if there's something you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to, you let me know, and we'll make it work that week. So I'm going to send y'all an email summarizing all this stuff, laying out this today. When I email out this video, you'll see on the email that I assume you got and clicked through to watch this video, on that same email, I'm going to have this schedule for the rest of the semester. So I told you it'd be a quick one today, and it was. But I want y'all to look ahead and read up on any of those topics. If you don't already know a little bit about the 13th, 14th, 15th amendments, about Dred Scott and about Plessy versus Ferguson, just read up a little bit. Just Google it, see what you find. Look at your textbook. Those should all be in the index of your textbook. The amendments are in the appendix, and the cases should be mentioned in the index there. And if you have any questions prior to class about those topics, feel free to email me or text me anytime. But I hope y'all are having a great Monday. Hope you're having a good start to your week. I hope you and your families are doing well. I hope you're all safe. Hope you're remaining socially distanced, but I hope you're having as good a quality of life as we can in these times. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all on Wednesday.